Hey, we've reached the point in the offseason where we find out about specific meetings for top-end players. What's up? It's FT, it's Braun, it's Pierzynski and Kratz. Before we get into that, though, what?
No, go ahead.
You don't know what I'm talking about?
No, go ahead. I'm going to let you finish, then I'm going to say something.
Okay. But I'm going to do something else first.
Okay.
I was just going to mention how Jeff Passan put out a big article today previewing the offseason, and a part that stood out to me was how he said that the agents and the baseball executives left the GM meetings feeling essentially more optimistic that there will be more early activity. So he said in recent years, it has felt more common for the sides to talk past one another, failing to communicate the sort of info that can lead to a free agent signing and cause the winter to grind to a halt before it even begins. He said the likeliest segment of the market to move quickly, both parties suggested, is starting pitching. It's the deepest position in the class. So there's optimism that there will be early action. I think some of that has to do with more higher end free agents available. So just
more
the law
teams
of
are
math.
Probably going to be involved this year than have been in the past few years. But when did like scheduling a meeting become like a thing? Like, I don't understand this. And then everyone has to hear about it. When did Scott Boras says, I'm going to let everyone know who's coming to meet with Juan Soto. Just meet with him. How about you fly Juan Soto?
Want to know.
People want to know, but for what reason? So they know their team tried, maybe?
They like information, and baseball is a big reality show. So
but when did this become a thing? Like, what happened to just calling your agent and saying, hey, we want to talk to you about Juan Soto. Now we got to have meetings?
Also, on the other end, Kratz, teams love this. Some teams act like, oh, we don't want this to get out, that we're meeting with this player. And, oh, the agents leak everything. No. Hold up. The agents leak certain things. On this case, teams desperately want you to know that they are meeting with that particular player. Why? Because it makes it sound like they are in on that player, which is the most famous phrase in off-season baseball.
When you hear money, that's when the agents are leaking it, because they want to make sure everybody knows how much is out there. If you want to beat the other team's price, you can have Juan Soto's services. But just the fact that we're finding out that the Yankees are going, I don't think the Yankees are looking for that type of PR, but other teams, we're in. We want to go talk to Juan Soto. What, you got on Route 1, the Pacific Coast Highway, and you just went down from San Fran and Southern California to meet with Juan Soto? Nothing for me.
I think
but it's
awesome.
More important for teams like the Red Sox to say, oh, we tried, to their fans. That's why, to me, you said teams leak it. Yeah, teams do leak it because they want people to think, oh, well, the Red Sox tried to get Juan Soto, or whatever other team you want to throw out there, whether it's the Giants or the Blue Jays or the Mets or the Yankees. Whoever doesn't get them, they're all going to say, well, we tried to get him so hard. We flew all the way to California.
We met with him. He didn't choose us.
Yes.
I'll use one example. So years back, Garrett Cole was a free agent. Then we'll get into the specific destinations here with Soto. But years back, you remember when Cole was a free agent and the Angels were pursuing him? And they were like, oh, maybe he wants to be in California. I had heard that he was definitely considering that. He ends up choosing New York. He, of course, also was very interested in being a Yankee. The Yankees made the highest offer.
Listen, I'm going to tell you this right now. Juan Soto's going to the highest bidder. He's not a guy that's going to say, well, I'm going to give up $50 million to go here or here. He's going to the highest bidder. So if you want Juan Soto, just be the highest bidder. That's it. It doesn't matter if it's on the moon. If they offer more money, he's going to the highest bidder. So let's stop with but let's stop with the charades of he's going to pick X, Y, and Z because he might like to go there, or he's going to pick here. He might like the beaches. He's going to the highest bidder. Okay, that's it. Let's just stop with all the other crap. He's going to the highest bidder.
Well, let's play the fancy '90s montage.
Is this going to be a segment every day, too? Because I'm already over it.
Boy.
Where will one go?
Are we going to do that? Because seriously, if we do that every day, I might just take a couple minutes off.
We're not doing it every day, but now there are meetings going on this week. Plus, it does sound like he's actually going to sign within the next maybe few weeks. It could be a winter meetings decision, maybe even sooner.
Great.
People want to know what's going on.
Yeah, but how many times can we talk about where will Juan go? I don't understand why. It wasn't
Can we play that
Shohei.
again?
Shohei is a
Yeah,
franchise.
we should play it again for
All right,
AJ.
I'm leaving. Shohei to me was a franchise possibly altering guy. I mean, Soto is a great player, but Shohei could pitch, Shohei could hit, Shohei brought in more money than anybody we've ever seen as a player. Juan Soto is the best free agent available right now.
Some people are calling him one of the best free agents of all time. Why? Because of his age and his accomplishments.
Yeah, that's fine. That's
he is
great.
an
Wonderful.
Incredible bat.
But let me ask you, what did Juan Soto bring to the Yankees this year? How much money did Juan Soto gain for the New York Yankees this year?
Also, most fans don't care about that. They just want the best players on their team to win games. So they want to know who he's meeting with. So I'm going to lay out some potential meetings or some definite meetings that are going down this week. Jon Heyman reporting on this, a few others passing like I mentioned. So John said the meetings are the Giants, the Dodgers, the Red Sox, the Blue Jays, the Mets, the Yankees, and possibly 2 mystery teams in Southern California this week. Now, Passan in his article...
Here's the mystery teams.
Yeah, well, also Passan in his article, in my mind, the way he wrote it, essentially ruled out the Dodgers. He didn't say anything about the Giants. Not that they're not meeting, just saying, like, it's fake. And I do think, knowing Juan Soto and covering him since he's been in the league, he's earned the right to free agency, and he's going to be courted even by the teams that are going to be a joke with their offer. So he is going to enjoy a nice meeting, a nice presentation, a nice meal, and he earned that, and he's going to have fun with the free agent process. He's been looking forward to this for a while. So he is going to have a time with each of these teams, even though, probably 3 of them are going to give real offers that are going to be in a ballpark that he's going to listen to.
Yeah. Again, he's going to the place that gives them the most money. That's it. That's it. We're going to talk about this, obviously, until we're blue in the face.
Yes.
And Claude's going to keep making these video montages every day of different music and different things. But listen, at the end of the day, I don't know. It's kind of like when I played and I had an agent and I was a free agent. And I was like, listen, just tell me when something's real. Like, I don't want to hear about who called on the day after the World Series, because 29 teams call or 30 teams call Juan Soto and say, hey, we're interested, Scott. Right?
Yeah.
We know some of them. The Marlins ain't signing Juan Soto.
They're not meeting with him.
But right. So that's what I mean. I want to hear when it actually is kind of getting close.
Can I present a case to you, though? If you're a free agent and you earned that right and you're coming off a great year and teams keep calling saying, AJ, I'm going to take you on the dinner of your life. We've got the best chef in town. We're going to bring in some celebrities. You would take all of those dinners. Come on, Mr. Mayor. That's fun. I would. I'd be all over that. Be like, let's do it.
No, that's not true. I would not, because
why?
Because I wouldn't go. Sorry, Kratz. I wouldn't go to a team. I wouldn't waste a team's time if I knew in my heart I'm not going there. If I have no chance of going to a place, then I'm not going. Listen, this is forever ago now, but when I was in high school, Stanford, you know Stanford, called me, and I was scheduled to go on an official visit to Stanford. Fly across here to Stanford. Never been to Stanford. Never been to Palo Alto. None of that. Like a week before, not even less than a week before, the coach calls me and says, hey, you're still coming on your visit. I was like, yeah. I said, but let me ask you all a question. First of all, I got to fly across the country, which I live in Florida. California is a long ways, okay? Mm-hmm. Second of all, y'all got a catcher there that was a freshman All-American. His name was A.J. Hinch. Okay, so if I fly there, I'm going to sit behind A.J. Hinch for 2 years possibly. They're like, oh, you play first, you might DH, yeah, blah, blah, blah. I said, you know what, y'all? I ain't going to Stanford. I appreciate it. I'm not going. Now, I could have sucked up that visit and gone out there. It's not apples to apples, but you understand what I'm saying. But if I was a free agent, right, and I knew there was no chance I was signing with whatever team you want to go to, right, I'm going to be like, I'm sorry, guys. Like, thanks for your time, but I really don't. Not happening. I'm sorry.
Maybe they can convince you otherwise. You never know what happens with a face-to-face meeting. I mean, what if it ends up being Erik Kratz at the table? He can talk me into many things. Look at that face. He's such a nice guy. And he's been waiting patiently for us to just babble back and forth. But what do you got?
It's okay. I'll sell ketchup to a woman in white gloves. The biggest thing, though, AJ, is you were looking for the best situation, best place. Juan Soto is looking for the most money. Let's say he doesn't ever want to go play in San Francisco because he knows his numbers will never meet up to what Barry Bonds' numbers were. It's not going to be a good fit for him. The Giants have legitimate money. Maybe he can take what they're saying, because they've been players in Correa and Judge in the last 3 years. You sit there and you go, I have to at least listen to what they have to say, because then I can take whatever they have and push it on the other teams. I may not actually, and I don't think that's disingenuous. I don't think that's rude of Juan Soto to not go and do that. I think if you're looking for the most money, you have to take the leverage from other teams' offers, whether they are teensy tiny. Like let's say the Giants offer $525 and the Yankees offered $525. If he never went to that meeting and the Giants, who he's going to pay 13%, 7% more tax in California than New York, he can then go to the Giants and be like, would you give me more? And then they say, sure, we'll give you that 7% more. Then he can go back to the Yankees and say, they just raised it by 7%. Would you give us that, that kind of thing? I think he has to go to all these meetings.
But there are certain teams that he knows they're not legit. I mean, let's be serious. Like, do we really think the Rays are going to sign him? I mean, no offense to the Rays organization. They got other problems right now. But are they really going to sign Juan Soto unless it's for a one-year deal? They're not going to sign him to a long-term deal. So I don't know. I mean, listen, I hope Juan Soto gets every dollar he can get. But the Giants also are cutting payroll. Didn't they come out and say they're cutting payroll?
Yeah, that one makes no sense. They're out.
I mean, although they're all listed as a team, they just said we're cutting. You ain't cutting payroll and signing Juan Soto. I'm sorry.
So let's try and take this serious. And also, quick correction, Kratz, just so we don't get any of the number tax nerds on there. New York and California for top tax bracket is pretty much the same. It's pretty similar. Other places have a huge difference. Yeah.
No, if he signed in Florida where there's no state tax, he'd make a lot more.
Yeah, you're like 13% difference, stuff like that.
Or Texas.
Yes. But neither of those
or
teams
the A's when they get to
play.
Vegas.
Yes.
When.
Okay, so we've talked plenty about the Mets and Yankees. Do we buy into any of these other teams? Like I mentioned, Passan essentially said no Dodgers. He didn't mention the Giants. He did mention the Red Sox and the Blue Jays. So let's focus on those two teams for a moment. And the Phillies weren't mentioned any of this either. So Red Sox, Blue Jays, either of those two teams have a chance?
Blue Jays, 100%.
What about Red Sox?
Red Sox won't do it.
Too much?
They haven't shown their propensity. They already have Devers signed up. They haven't shown their propensity to go big long-term deals from outside people in a long time. John Henry doesn't like to do it.
Yeah.
The whole Fenway, LeBron James doesn't want to do it except for himself. He doesn't want a long-term deal except for maybe for Bronny playing the G League, but that's a whole different story. You know what I'm saying? Though they haven't shown the want to do this. They've been short-term deal with guys.
Yeah,
they got burned by Trevor Story a little bit. That's
the
one that kind
of. I mean, come on, it's 100-something. Like this is another stratosphere. Devers got 25.
Yeah, but Devers was a homegrown guy. They knew him and they knew what they were getting with him.
Red Sox fans are like, you didn't even want to pay for Mookie Betts. You're going to pay for Juan Soto.
My point.
Well, I think they regret that move. But Dan Shaughnessy, who's covered the team out there for many years, said, does everyone think Red Sox fans are stupid? Talking about if they're legit players for Juan Soto. He's essentially saying, come on, that's ridiculous. Do you think it's ridiculous? I'm not sure if I think it's ridiculous. At some point, do we believe that they'll hit a breaking point and say, hey, business is hurting? We're not keeping up with everyone else. We're actually building a nice core. They have a really good set of prospects coming through. And I know they might trade from that set of prospects to get themselves someone like Garrett Crochet. But even if they do, they're still going to be second or third fiddle in that division, Kratz. They have the ability to make a couple moves this offseason and make a strong play in the division, if not for a wild card spot. I truly believe that. One or two starters, and obviously if they have a conversation about Soto, they certainly can afford him. They're not paying players like they used to.
I would say they have about a 0.5% chance of getting him. The only reason I say a 0.5% is because they showed last year that their new formula, the way that they're pitching, might be able to find value in pitching when I thought they needed to be like in the Max Fried sweepstakes. They needed to keep they didn't keep Chris Sale, so he just won an NL Cy Young Award. But I thought, and so maybe, and this is just so hypothetical, that they see that they can get value in pitchers like Nick Pivetta, like Cutter Crawford. And they can say, well, we can get value in pitching. It's a tough place to pitch anyway. We're going to go all in on a position player. But the other part of it, I think they need to be in on this. Not necessarily to get them, but to make sure the Yankees do not pay value. They need to make the Yankees pay overvalue. I think the Phillies are the other team in that discussion. I think the Phillies have a better chance than the Red Sox of getting them, but I think they need to make sure that the Mets pay more than what Juan Soto's worth. They need to push that envelope and make sure their interdivision foe at least pays more than what they thought they were going to have to pay.
First of all, the Red Sox-Yankees thing, that's long gone. They're not competing for the same type of people anymore. The days of the Red Sox and Yankees pushing each other is gone because the Yankees know the Red Sox aren't. But the Yankees and the Red Sox know they're not competing for the same players anymore. They've made that clear, right? The player for the Red Sox, they need a right-handed bat. Teoscar Hernandez. They're not going to sign Alex Bregman because they have Devers. Teoscar Hernandez is the guy for me for the Red Sox. And if they can't get Teo, they bring back O'Neill and try to keep him out.
Or Santander.
But he's a switch hitter. You get more bats from the left side. They're left-hand heavy, man. Now, Christian Walker would make sense, but they have Tristan Casas.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Pete Alonso would make sense there, especially with the short porch. He hits those high fly balls. You get caught on the warning track at Citi Field. They're over the monster, out there on Lansdowne Street. What is that street? Lansdowne, I think it is. Whatever it is out there. Right? Yeah. So,
sounds
right. But you know what I'm saying? Like, those guys make more sense. Juan Soto, yes, left-handed. He would look great in the lineup. Fill out the Red Sox uniform, great. But they need right-handed power. And if you ask Alex Cora, he'll tell you, we need somebody from the right side that can bang because all their prospects, guess what they are? They're all left-handed hitters.
Okay, I'm going to give you a little preview. We're going to go to break here because Collin McHugh's waiting for us, and I want to chat with him and get some good time here. But to be continued on AJ's prediction of where Juan Soto is going to land. We're going to do bold predictions later in the show. Collin McHugh joining us next. All right, FT fam, we got a new one. A shout out to Storyworth, and we'll give you a little info on what they bring to the table. You can check out storyworth.com/foul to save $10 on your first purchase. I just ordered this for my mom. She loves keeping track of the family and family history and writing down stories and all of that. But she's like, I forget to do it if you just buy me, say, a scrapbook, which has been a thing for a long time. So here's the deal. They handle all of that for you. They'll email the loved one that gets the gift and say, hey, here's a question, or send me something that we can put in this book. They put the book together for you. So I think it's really cool. Obviously, it's a great gift. It's holiday time. People are asking for suggestions. What do you think? Yes?
Me? Oh,
either of you.
I love it. I mean, anytime you can get, just not necessarily just your parents, because you can probably collect those stories, but like, your aunts and uncles, stories about your parents, your aunts and uncles, stories about your grandparents that maybe you don't know. Like, I think it's awesome. And right now, maybe your high school or middle school kids wouldn't get it. But at some point, it's really cool to read that stuff. I love scrapbooks. When my wife makes scrapbooks or something, or my mom makes them, I'll just randomly sit down and I'll be like, ooh, I want to see pictures. Because I love seeing pictures, being reminded of stuff and trips and all that stuff.
They've got over 35,000 five-star reviews on Trustpilot with millions of stories preserved since they were founded over 10 years ago. So FT fam, go check it out. Get yourself a little $10 off your first purchase. That's storyworth.com/foul to save $10 on your first purchase. And with Storyworth, you're giving those you love a thoughtful, personal gift from the heart and preserving their memories and stories for years to come. Be right back with Collin McHugh. Former big leaguer, current baseball analyst Collin McHugh joining us here for the first time on FT. Collin, great to have you on, man. Thanks for the time. And, we'd been wanting to get you on anyway and send the invite, but I actually saw your name pop up. Were you at the GM meetings? Am I right there?
I was, yeah. It was my first entree into this front office world that that I've seen so much of over the years as a player, but I've never really dipped my toe in. So it was fun. I got to meet with a lot of clubs and kind of see how the sausage is made up there at the executive level.
Dude, that's awesome. Give me more. So what did you do? What can you tell us? And are you looking to get yourself into a front office role? I mean, you were a guy, I feel like, that always spoke the language pretty well between players and front office, and obviously spent some time with the Astros when they were one of the teams leading the charge, especially on the pitching side.
Yeah, I've been real fortunate over the course of my career to play for some really good teams, and some teams that were kind of on the cutting edge of a lot of this new this new baseball generation. I know that AJ and Kratz can both attest to this, but kind of when we came into the league, it was a little bit more traditional. It was what had been passed down through player to player, from coach to coach, and now we're really starting to see these teams advance and evolve at a faster speed, and they're doing things kind of from the ground up. And like I said, I saw this kind of close up for long enough that now, after kind of spending a year in broadcasting, doing some media, seeing what the fan perspective is, remembering what the fan perspective is, I should say, I'm a little bit more curious as to what it looks like to make these decisions. And not every team does it the same. There's 30 clubs, and each one has kind of their own mix of analytics, kind of old school heart and soul, and then the franchise behind them. That's a lot of these are hundreds of years old. So it's amazing to see on both sides of it, and I'm curious. We'll see where I land, but I think ultimately I'd like to get in there and add some value where I can.
Collin, first of all, when I first came up, there was no such thing. I mean, analytics were like we didn't even have weight rooms in the stadiums. Okay, so analytics, they weren't even there. So I appreciate you thinking I'm a lot younger than I am, but trust me, when I first came up, there was no strength coach or weight room. It was just whatever. So how many teams did you get to sit down and meet with? And I want to know, what were some of the major differences? I know you don't have to call a team, but you don't have to say like the Astros did it this way or the Braves did it this way. But how many teams were you able to actually sit down with? And what was the biggest difference, maybe the biggest gap you saw from, we'll use Team A and Team B?
I met with probably 8 or 9 teams. A lot of these GMs, AGMs, executive staff are people that I've known around the game for a long time. I played for a bunch of different teams. I played in both leagues, between labor stuff and executive subcommittee with the union. I've just met a lot of people over the years, and so some of this is reconnecting with people that I really like and respect in the game. And some of it is, truly like just trying to find these informational dots and try to kind of connect some of these with my experience and what these teams kind of institutionally know. I was able to speak with Mike Elias and his club in Baltimore. Been following them closely for the last couple of years. Kratz and I, we know him from our days back in Houston, but he's been able to kind of build this young, exciting club full of prospects, and that was kind of his background with scouting. So being able to kind of pick his brain about like what does player development look like from your perspective? What does scouting look like? What are y'all doing now that young core has kind of become what we thought they would be, and how do you supplement that and kind of take that next step? So he's thinking through that, while Brian O'Halloran and Boston is kind of thinking through, how do we continue to maintain this Boston across this, Red Sox across our chest and what the fans expect for us to be, while also continuing to evolve and live in this new generation of baseball that is not just, they've got 4 World Series rings in the last 20 years. It's easy to rest on that if you wanted to, but this game catches up with you quickly. And we've seen that, the AL East is a juggernaut. And on the other end of that, I also met with Tampa, who I know well, Erik and his staff down there, and the way that they're approaching things is obviously going to be different. So kind of finding out what that secret sauce is a little bit with them, and being able to, apply it to hopefully what a lot of these other clubs are trying to do, which at the end of the day is winning ball games, but there's no one way to do it. So you kind of have to figure out, mix and match, and figure out which works with your specific personnel.
Maybe you already hit on this, but with talking about Mike Elias, who are you most impressed with in that sense, front office sense, from the outside? And I'm not saying whether, the meeting or not made you say, they're brutal, but who are you most impressed with? Who's doing it the way that Collin McHugh would do it?
That's a good question. And once again, I don't think there is a cookie cutter way of doing this. So a lot of clubs are doing this in different ways depending on who they have in the driver's seat. But, a guy that I was able to run across a couple years ago in Boston, Hein Bloom, it was just announced he's going to be kind of taking the helm and taking over from Mo over in St. Louis. And I've just always been really impressed by him. Really smart dude, very relational. And he knows what he knows from the Tampa years. He's learned a lot, I think, over these last couple gigs with Boston, and then now kind of being behind the scenes a little bit with St. Louis. It's a club that could probably, you look around the game, and people have told me, it seems like they're a little bit more traditional than some of the other clubs. It seems like they might be a little behind in a couple of areas, and so being able to kind of bring a new perspective to that, some new energy to that club. Kind of on the shoulders of what Mozeliak and that crew has been able to do for 20 years. I'm talking about 20 years of consistent winning up until this past season. And so, I think that there's a lot to be excited about there. Those fans, that franchise has a lot looking forward to it. And I really like Heim as a guy, and we're able to sit down and have a long chat about some of the challenges and some of the expectations moving forward.
Collin, baseball is a copycat league. MLB is like that, right? So I'm wondering if you think that the pendulum is starting to swing back to smart former players becoming more prominent in front offices. I don't remember what the exact number was, but at one point we either had very little or no top-end leadership in front office talking about baseball operations. Of course, Chris Young wins a World Series in 2023, leading the Texas Rangers. Craig Breslow is leading the Boston Red Sox. Buster Posey just took over the San Francisco Giants. Are we leaning towards this becoming more of a thing again?
I think so, but I do think that there's a backstory there that I hadn't really thought about it until talking to a lot of these executives, and that is, like AJ was talking about, a lot of the former players that maybe one generation before me came up in a very different baseball world. It was a world where there wasn't a ton of resources available to be able to do stuff on your own, to be able to learn. And so once this kind of new in vogue, I don't want to call it Moneyball because that's a horse that's been, beaten to death, but we have so many more analytics and so much more information available across the league, and individual players have access to all this stuff too. So the development is happening at a different level. And so I think some of the players now who you're talking about, the Buster Posey, Sam Fuld, Brez, and some of these guys who are taking a little bit more of these leadership roles in the front office have seen both sides of it, right? They've seen what it is to just be a player and kind of play and manage from that gut position all the way through this information age. And now they can kind of hopefully marry those two in a really interesting and effective way at the front office level. But I think, before, a lot of these young new front offices were kind of fighting uphill battles against these former players, getting them to buy into this stuff. So, I do think that this next generation, you're going to see a few more players kind of come into that fold and hopefully be able to lend some perspective, some on-field perspective that I've been able to have to these really impressive, very bright front offices that have already been in place for the last 10 years or so.
Collin, a couple for you. What's your ultimate goal? Do you want to be a GM? Do you want to be like a president of baseball ops? Do you want to be a manager? What's the ultimate goal for you in doing this? And when you answer, I have a follow-up on it.
Yeah, asking me to put my cards out here. I appreciate that.
I mean, do you want to coach? Do you want to manage? Do you want to front office? Do you want to be a farmer? Like, there's a lot of different routes with your background that you could do.
There are, and it really does take an entire village, right, to run one of these clubs. I think ultimately I have so much left to learn that it's hard to say, could I run a club at some point? I think the ambition in you says like, maybe. You've seen some people do it really well so far, but ultimately I want to learn. And I want to learn the things that I don't know yet, which is a lot of kind of the mechanics of how this front office works. I don't think I'm going to coach. I've been around some really good coaches in my day, the Brent Stroms of the world, the Kyle Snyders, and these people are the best in the world at it, and they do this really, really well. So I think being able to bridge that gap between what the coaches do on field and mechanically, and kind of taking some of that information from front office and, streamline, make that a little bit more efficient in that communication. That's probably a little bit more of my sweet spot. But once again, I think there's a lot of roles that need to be filled.
Collin, just say it. Yes, I want to be a GM and I want to run a team. That's
like,
okay.
Yo,
listen, that'd be awesome. Let's go.
Yeah.
Listen, I have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old at home, and if you know what that is, it's hard to think more than about a week in advance.
I'll be an AGM now. When my 4-year-old gets to the age where I'm comfortable leaving, guess what? There'll be some GMs that are fired every once in a while. You can just kind of slide right in, right? But what I wanted to ask you is, what team that you played for, and you're probably going to say the Astros because you were there during the Lunau, the whole Elias, that whole thing. But which team did you play for? One, communicated analytics the best, and two, how would you recommend? Because I think a lot of people my age, Kratz's age, older people that still want to be involved in baseball have a hard time communicating analytics. Like, it's not that we don't understand them. I know Kratz does. He understands them better than I do, but I understand the numbers. But how do we communicate them not only to pro level players, but to players down the line?
Yeah, I'm tempted to say the Astros because I think that they were kind of on that first cutting edge there. But, I think because they were kind of early to that, there were some learning curves and communication wasn't always super direct. The year that I got to spend in Tampa, though, in 2021, I would say I probably learned more in that 1 year there than I did in the rest of my career combined. And that's because they have to do it differently there, right? They have to kind of initiate buy-in from the jump and say, hey, we're going to do things a little differently. We've got to be transactional. But at the same time, while you're here, we are going to absolutely maximize what you can do. And I think that they've learned in that front office that it's not one size fits all, but these statistics can be good teaching tools for a lot of these players who maybe they do have that one thing that they are better than everybody else at. So how do we maximize that and make the most of it? And you can see from that, front office trail from Andrew Friedman to Eric Neander to Heim to Bendix now, there's a coaching tree and a front office tree there that is long. And I think it's proof that they're doing something really well. Like, they're staying competitive for an entire decade. And I think arguably the hardest division in baseball. So I think that they do it really, really well. I like them over there. They are extremely relational. And I think that is one of the things that is kind of one of that, maybe a competitive advantage if you can do it really well at an organizational level.
We know you got to go. I have to tell the FT fam, I have an RBI off of you, but no hit. Do you remember what happened? It was back in the New York Mets days. The current pitcher,
I gave up so many runs.
Current pitching coach for the Mets started, and I was hitting 8th, and he got shellacked for the first 7. Yep, you got me 0-2, and what happened?
I drilled you.
Wow, 0-2, yeah. RBI. Yeah.
Yeah, I think combined, me and Hef gave up about 8 earnies that inning. So not our best night. Not my best year and a half in New York. Sorry, Mets fans.
0-2, you hit Kratz with a pitch. Like, I think I'm going to retire. Collin, thank you. Appreciate the time, dude. Great to talk to you, and I would love to have you back. Enjoy the offseason. Have a great holiday coming up.
I appreciate it, fellas. We'll talk soon.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Collin McHugh with us, former big leaguer, and yes, he did smack Kratz with a pitch. It hurt the baseball. All right, here we are. We're back looking at questions.
Hold on, before we go. So when I first did broadcasting, 2015, okay. Mm-hmm. For Fox, I had the Astros and the Royals, ALDS with John Smoltz and Matt Vasgersian.
Okay.
You get time during the playoffs with the starting pitcher. Well, at the time they had Keuchel, they had McHugh, I forget who else they had. But when I first talked to Collin McHugh, I was like, this dude is going to be a GM because just the way he talked, a manager, a pitching coach, he's going to continue to play. Just the way he talked. And I remember talking about it after. We're like, man, that guy's impressive to talk to. I like talking to him. And then when you talk to him, but just, like I said, just say it. You know what? I want to be a GM.
Yeah.
Because the way he talks, he's got the GM speak down, right, Kratzy? He should just say it, man. I want to get into front office duties and go from there, like Craig Breslow did. Breslow did it on the side, kids, whatever. And then boom, now here he is.
Before you're a GM, they have that humble GM speak. When guys become GMs, then they become arrogant. But the new wave of GMs now are not as arrogant. They understand how to make the organization not a hierarchy, to make the organization like everybody has a piece. So I think I couldn't agree more. He's very cerebral. He's always thinking about stuff, and he's very smart. He's a great dude.
He was the first guy that ever talked about spin axes, and we were talking to him. He's talking about his curveball and his cutter, and he's like, I need to get the axis of the spin. And I'm like, what the hell is this guy talking about?
Well, didn't he have a name? We didn't have time for all this, but the Snapdragon, wasn't that his pitch? That was definitely his Players Weekend jersey back when they were allowed to do Players Weekend jerseys.
I thought it was 12-6. I thought his Players Weekend name was 12-6.
He might have had both at some point in life.
Anyway.
Yeah, he definitely had Snapdragon. Oh, maybe it was him and McCullers who had that whole thing going on, which, yeah, they like to play up to the curveball situation there, and how they were getting better.
Spin it. They could
very much spin it. Both.
AJ, you know about blocking curveballs and sliders. You had to, those two dudes, you had to go farther to the left, because you knew when it hit in front of you, it wasn't just bury it right in front of you and it was going to kind of spin off. No, they could rip it.
You know what? Now, in today's game, though, on one knee, you can just try to pick it. If it gets by, you're like, oh, sorry, I was trying to frame it. It's all good.
Yeah, I didn't have it.
I'm joking,
like that.
People.
Not even at the
end. I'm joking.
All right, let's charge the mound. So we have some, I think, good news. The St. Petersburg City report saying that the Tropicana field damage can be fixed for $55.7 million and be ready for the 2026 season. There's a look, if you haven't seen it, obviously, there's plenty of pictures of what it looks like. And even since then, obviously, it's been open air. So there's probably a ton of damage to a ballpark that's never supposed to be open. Yes, Dr. Evil, $55.7 million. At one point, though, I thought it was going to be triple digit, like whatever you call it, 9 figures.
9 figures is what we had originally heard. I'm sure there's plenty of people that have played there and are like, don't waste the money.
But they have to do something. They have to do something. They have to do something. They have to make
play there for
Why
years.
can't Major League Baseball just pick it up?
Why can't the Rays pick it up?
Because the Rays are small market and they can't afford it.
They can afford it.
Why does Major League Baseball pick it up?
Yeah, why?
That's what I just said. Why won't Major League Baseball just write a check?
Why do they have to? Why do they have to?
Would they rather have the Rays playing in a Major League stadium, although it's not a great one, in Tropicana, or would they rather have them playing in a spring training complex like Dunedin, Clearwater, Tampa?
I would say, as the commissioner, you have to pay it and go back into your Major League park. And also, I think half of it's probably going to be covered by insurance. So we're talking about, what, $30 million? I mean, if they whine
that's why the Rays won't be able to afford Juan Soto.
That's fine. So they'll have to tack down the payroll a little bit. But I actually don't think this is a bad bill. So to me, this is good news that came out today.
I agree.
At one point, you still have people that have come on our show that are like, they're never going to play there again, and they shouldn't play there again. To me, this is a big difference from if it was going to be $150 million. I know it's still a crazy amount of money. And my question is, does this only go up for a few years and then they still smash it all down?
That's why you're going to waste $55 million.
Then I'm still feeling weird. Like, just from a world resource perspective, like, do we really need to build on top of crap and then throw the... It's a bad.
They're not building the new stadium on top of the old stadium.
No. I'm saying, do we need to fix the crappy ballpark and put a lot of world money into it? I know it's their money, but I don't know. It's weird.
I talked to an insurance adjuster, and they were talking about how much the I forget what it is, like something ACB or something, adjusted cash benefit. Like, so they're looking at the difference of forking out what did it say? 55, so yeah, 30.7 million, because if they get 25 million from the insurance company, they're looking at, they could probably get like 6 to 10 million cash to walk away from it and tear it down. So they're looking at really a deficit of what would be $36 million. It's not just the 30.7, because insurance would give them cash to just walk away from it and abandon the building, but it would be way, way, way less.
I know what you're saying is insurance says we'll either give you $25 million of the 55.7 that we owe you to fix this, or we'll just give you some cash on the side and you build your own thing or figure out your own situation, because that obviously saves them a ton of money. But that doesn't help Major League Baseball from preventing not one but two teams playing in a minor league facility for years to come. It's getting ridiculous. The fact that we even accept that one team can do that, we can't have two.
Okay. Why do we have
this
that?
Is the team that has the much better excuse.
No, this one had a natural disaster.
Yes.
This one had a natural disaster. The other team moved because they just wanted to move.
Well, the other one does have a natural disaster. It's just
well, you know what I'm saying. Yeah,
I mean, he was born and he sucks at sports.
Listen, if I'm Major League Baseball, I go to the Rays and I say, we got to figure this out, because we can't play. They're 28 is when the new stadium is supposed to be open if it gets finalized. Mm-hmm. But there's all these other things that are in the way of that if you follow that too. New people were elected to the board and all this stuff at the election day. So now they're like, well, are we going to even be able to get this passed? So at this point, if I'm Major League Baseball, you got to go to the Rays and say, listen, y'all got to fix this, because what happens if your stadium isn't ready in 28? You're going to have to play here until we figure out where you're going to play after that.
Yeah.
Whether it's in Tampa or it's in somewhere else. So they're going to have to fix this one way or another, because you can't bounce around and play at minor league stadiums forever. Unless they move to Oakland, but then there'd have to be a realignment. There'd be a whole mess.
Yeah, they're
bigger
not moving.
Mess. So they're not doing that, right? So they got to figure this out. And the simple solution is they play 1 year wherever they play this year, and then next year they have to move back into the Trop until they figure out what the long-term solution is, which is supposed to be a stadium across the street.
Mm-hmm. Can they fix some other things too while they're at it? Can they fix the lighting?
Lighting's not bad.
It's not the lighting.
It's not the lighting. Dingy in there. No? What is it?
I mean, it's the roof. You're getting natural light with regular light.
That's the problem. Yeah. So is it going to be a dark roof?
I don't know why.
Still going to be the same roof? They're going to put the same roof back?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
Stripes on it, put some stripes on it or something so that people don't lose fly balls.
Why don't they make it like blue and put the Rays logo in the middle? Do it the Rays.
So sick.
Yeah, do something cool. Yeah, exactly.
By the way, Scott, one day I want you to, next time you go to the Trop after they put the roof on, I want you to walk up on the catwalks all the way at the top and let me know what you think.
Have you done that?
No, but I wouldn't mind.
I'll do that if you do that.
Dude, I jumped out of a plane yesterday. You think I'm scared to walk on the catwalk?
I'll jump out of a plane tomorrow if I get to go with the guys that you went with. I'm just not going with the, random side business guy, who's like, hey, go with me. I've done 10,000 jumps, and then you find out that he really hasn't.
You took a 7-hour class? You take like a 7-hour class to do it yourself, yes.
I did
Stayed at a Holiday Inn.
10,000 jump simulations.
Like they went to the iFly.
Right. Yeah. So anyway.
It was really windy up there.
Yes. All right. Let's get to a rumor here. Also in Jeff Passan's notes column today, I found the portion of the article that might appeal to Phillies fans and fans of Alec Bohm. He said, coming off a career best season, the 28-year-old Alec Bohm, nonetheless, finds himself on the trade block. While he was a well above average hitter, his first half OPS was nearly 150 points higher than in the second half. The Phillies are looking to shake up their team after a disappointing postseason ouster by the Mets. He's listing a bunch of guys in this notes column, some of who we've already talked about, like Nolan Arenado. We'll get to Josh Naylor at some point in life. We've definitely talked about Jordan Montgomery, Brandon Lau. But what are your thoughts, Kratz, on Alec Bohm's situation? Because for me, this is a good player. I think the Phillies are a little caught right now. Owner wants to make changes. Team is heavily invested in many veteran players who are on high salaries that are very difficult to trade, but they don't want to roll out the same roster for 2025.
Who has the most value and can open up a spot for them where they could improve. To me, that's where it gets to. Do you believe in Alec Boehm's first half last year? If you do, you're going to pay an exuberant amount for Alec Boehm. If you believe the fact that without that first half, Alec Boehm is essentially a even WAR player, a OPS plus of a rate around 100, and so you're not going to get that much. And in that case, the Phillies aren't going to move him. But there's really not a lot of guys to move because you start eating contracts. You start looking, okay, could I move Nick Castellanos? Sure, but you're going to have to eat some of that contract. He got hot in the second half. Where's that value? He was an all-star in 23. So you have to look around this roster, and if you say you have to change something, I guess that's the guy. And to me, if that happens, then there's no way they don't get Alex Bregman. They're doing this because they get Alex Bregman. Alex Bregman would bring them somebody who doesn't strike out a lot, puts that at bat together and walks quite a bit. He could slot in behind Schwarber in the sense of, another on base guy because they struck out too many times. But when you do that, Alec Boehm only struck out 86 times last year in 600 plate appearances. So he's not a big strikeout. If you're trying to eliminate strikeouts, I don't know if that's like the direct correlation. Alex Boehm is an upgrade. Alex Bregman is an upgrade over Alec Boehm, but is it that much of an upgrade to then add another $25+ million guy to your roster?
Here's the biggest thing I'll say with Alec Boehm after being around the Phillies for about a week in the playoffs and then seeing he needs to improve things, not his performance. Let's just say that. There's some people around that organization that aren't huge fans of the way he acts sometimes. And I'm just going to leave it at that, but there are some people that have said he needs to basically grow up a little bit. There are some things that he's done that people that, he got benched in the playoffs, basically. If you remember, Game 3, he got benched for Sosa.
You think that had to do with something else or just underperformance? Or not going to say?
It had to do with both.
Got it.
From people, and this didn't come from, this came from people around the Phillies.
Yep.
I'm not saying Dave Dombrowski or Sam Fuld or Rob Thomas, none of those people, but it came from people that are around and have a lot of knowledge about the Phillies that he needs to take the next step as a maturing adult. And I think that people, if you watch the Phillies games all the time, and Kratz, you watch them all the time, you know what I'm talking about.
So he's definitely getting traded.
I don't know about that.
No.
I'm not saying he's definitely getting traded. I'm just saying
but they have to do something.
They have to do something, true. But if
who
Alec
else
Boehm
is
doesn't
getting
get a player they need, you're not trading Alec Boehm just to trade him. You're not trading Nick Castellanos just to trade him.
But they want to shuffle the roster. So if there's someone they feel like they're a little more down on, but has a high value across the market, that's where you're going to pull off a trade.
Agreed.
So the changes for them, because changing pitching, if you want to shuffle the complexion of your roster, how much is pitching going to do that? It's about position players, right? And most of these guys are locked into spots. So to me, the Philadelphia Phillies in 2025 will have a new center fielder and a new third baseman. Those are the two spots.
So I wish I would have wrote this as my bold prediction, but I'll throw it out there. The Phillies and the Cardinals match up for a really good, awesome offseason trade where they get Helsley and they get Nolan Arenado. It shores up some defense. Obviously, he's an upgrade at third, and maybe some of the lack of power is helped out by Citizens Bank Small Park.
I'm into it.
By the way, before we go, I just want to say, did you guys see Tom Brenneman call the football game the other day and he made the Castellanos joke? It was kind of funny.
I did.
Sorry. Off subject, I know. But
yes, I did.
It was great.
It was.
It was perfect.
Yeah. He's like, hey, I'm going to take this head on.
That's the best thing you can do.
That's a random-ass last name.
Right? And then he does a game with another one of them in.
Yeah.
And he just says, I'm going to get this out of the way right now.
Good for him. All right, so next up, bold predictions. We've got certain top lists we're going to go over the next couple weeks, players we think are going to be traded. But for today, our top 5 bold predictions of the offseason coming up. Hey, we're back. Okay, I'm actually going to read. There's a couple comments that I've had saved for a while. So here's one. This will get AJ all fired up for the bold predictions segment. So I was going back and forth with a guy named John Michael on Twitter. And we were talking about some other team. And he's like, does Pierzynski ever apply this criticism to Reinsdorf about spending? And I was like, yeah, you should watch the show. He definitely pressures the White Sox to make moves. He actually pressures them probably more than any other team because he likes them the most and wants them to be successful. And he's like, okay, I haven't heard him demand the White Sox sign star players, but I'd like to be proven wrong.
What? John Apparently you never watch a show.
I was like, bro.
I mean, I got fired. I got fired from the White Sox for saying this stuff.
I'm going to send him.
I mean, holy cow!
You know, if you've missed the thousands and thousands of hours, this is another 2 minutes for you to understand that AJ desperately wants this team to do that. And we are not a state-run show. We are an independent MLB program that talks about the sport however the heck we want. And AJ desperately would like to see the White Sox sign a ball player who is worth it for an $100 million contract.
Please.
How often have they done that?
Never. 75 million highest. There's two teams that have never signed a $100 million player. One you can guess is the White Sox, and the other one is the ATHs. They used to be Oakland, West Sacramento / we're moving to Vegas Athletics.
Yeah, the homeless A's. There you go.
Homeless. I like that.
It's good, right?
Yeah.
Homeless A's.
I don't think homeless people need to be defamed like that.
No, you're right.
There's a lot of people, a lot of homeless people living their best life. Don't do that to John Fisher.
Maybe ballparkless.
Yeah.
Rays. But then the Rays fit in there too, so you can't really say that either.
That's true. But the Rays will find a home before the A's will.
A's
so anyway, in conclusion, John Michael, AJ definitely is not defending the White Sox for their transactions, especially recently. 2005, they did a nice job constructing their roster.
2006, we were actually better and we didn't win.
Right, but still,
we had a better team on paper.
That was the glory days. Everyone will say that, right?
Yeah, listen, we tried for every year I was there for 8 years. We tried, and when they put money into it, and they actually really tried hard to win. And then they kind of took a step back, and they said, "All right, we're going to reload." And they tried to do it, and it didn't work. And then they tried again, and it worked for half a year and a half, and then it fell apart again. And now they're in the holy crap. What are you doing? We lost 121 games. So it's going to take some time, but I hope when the time arrives, they spend money. But a nice first step for the White Sox this offseason, they've already said they won't do it, is to splurge a little bit in free agency just to give the fans hope. They won't do it because they already said they're not going to, but it would be great.
And you can trade those assets to get prospects. They won't do it.
AJ's a homer, John Michael. Way to call him out.
Bold off-season predictions in our boldest font. Let's do it right now. We have 5 of them, and we're going to go down the line. Kratz has 2, AJ's going to present 2, and then I'll finish with 1. So, Erik Kratz, the first bold prediction from FT is?
Cleveland Guardians will spend over $60 million on a free agent.
Total contract, not on 1 year.
Total contract. Like an Edwin type of thing. I think they see there's a window. And I think I'm not saying I know who that one person is who's going to push them over the top. I think it's some type of pitcher. I think it's an opportunity for them to get a starting pitcher that's going to give them some innings so they don't break everybody in that bullpen. And I think with losing Bieber, I think uncertain about Tristan McKenzie, I think it's something that will push them to do something kind of like they did with Edwin. They may see a window here where they still have Jose in his prime. They still have a lot of quality players that can make another run at the playoffs.
Edwin Encarnacion, just to clarify, is that who you're talking about?
Yeah. Okay. When they went in, I think they went in 3 years, $55 million.
I can find that, but just for some kids out there who are like, who's Edwin? Who's he talking about? Sorry, it's actually been a minute since they've done that. 3 years, 60 to Cleveland.
It was 60
to 2019. There was a club option on there. I don't think they picked up, but anyway, it was 3 years, 60 back then. So good call. So playing off of that, and they need what, 1 or 2 starters, and they need an outfielder, a bat
somewhere.
Yeah. So either way, that could
for
be the
60.
play.
I just couldn't think of a bat that they're going to put in the 60 to 75 range. I feel like you get like a Sonny Gray type of 3 years, $75 million, for a starter, somebody that makes a big impact on this team, who figured out a way to swing it in the first half, and that kind of diminished a little bit in the second half. But to me, that's my bold prediction.
Okay. And also, just to clarify again, Sonny Gray's not a free agent, but like what he did last year with somebody like, who's the guy? Sean Manaea?
I could see
Kikuchi
would be a big.
I like Evaldi there, although I don't know if he's going to get 60.
Evaldi's not going there.
No? That's not
Why
his
not?
spot.
No. I don't think Evaldi would be. I just don't think he will.
Luis Severino?
I think he is more than 60.
Evaldi, for me,
he's going to want to go to a shorter-term, higher AAV team that's right on the verge of winning. And I don't think he looks at Cleveland as a team that's guaranteed to win. So I don't think he goes there. He wants to go to – I could see a Jack Flaherty where they overpay for him, a 3-year 75, something like that. Or a Severino, something like that. But I don't see Snell going there. Manaea maybe, but they'd have to probably overpay. Kikuchi would be a good one. Nick Martinez. People love Nick Martinez.
But he's not getting 75. I promise you that. And I think he's going to take the qualifying offer. But I know what you're saying. These are the kind of guys that they would look into.
We're not talking to the top. Would they bring back a Shane Bieber for a year or two?
Yeah, but he's not. We need someone that's going to be 60 plus.
But it's tough to find one.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't.
Besides the top guys are going to be way above 60, right? You're not getting Freed. You're not getting.
But you got to find do you sign like a 4-year 60 something to somebody like a Nick Pivetta?
Mm-hmm. I think Kikuchi could be a play for them.
He's
an analytics superstar. Cleveland definitely plays in those waters. All right, what's next for you, Kratz? We got 4 more to go. Go ahead.
Obviously, I'm going to contradict what I just said about trading for Helsley and Arenado, but the whole Alec Bohm thing kind of threw a loop in it. But I said the Phillies are going to trade for Devin Williams. I think their closer market, because their closer now is looking to become a starter, Jeff Hoffman, on the free agent market, so it's not like you can just go out and get him. I think it's one of those things that he is clearly the best available closer on the market if the Brewers are trading him, which we all think they're going to trade him. And I think it's a move where the Phillies have guys that are close to big league ready, and that's what the Brewers are looking for. They're not looking for guys who are in the lower levels and not ready to make an impact in the big leagues for 2 or 3 years. They're looking for big league ready talent. Trade it straight up for Devin Williams.
Yep. Love that. Love Devin Williams for them. And obviously almost any contender is going to be in play for him, and he's probably going to get traded. Mm-hmm. All right, you're up.
All right, mine are pretty simple. I already said it. Juan Soto's not signing with the Mets or the Yankees. He's going to the team that gives him the highest value. Now, is that the Nationals? Is that the Blue Jays, or is there one of the mystery teams out there that we don't know about?
You think they're going to pay?
I'm just saying that's a prediction. It's a bold prediction. I could be boldly wrong, but I'm just saying I have a feeling one of the some team, whether it's the Tigers, who's going to play into my next prediction, which is the Tigers make the biggest splash this offseason.
Oh,
whether it's with one player or numerous players, they tasted the postseason this year. And I feel like the Illiches are itching to get back into the postseason. They're going to sell some more Little Caesars pizzas, especially those little pizza bite things they're selling now. Mm-hmm. And they're going to make some big splashes to try to get AJ Hinch the players you need to try to make another deep run in the postseason.
That plays into my fifth bold prediction. But before we go to that, I'll just try and double down. If your bold prediction is accurate on Juan Soto, I want to say it's Toronto. Where they just
what about the Nats?
Screw it.
The Nats might go
they
back to
offered 440 back in the day.
Maybe they go back to him and say 12,500.
Yeah,
I don't
know. I mean, Toronto makes a ton of sense. You just haven't seen them do that, but they know they have to overpay. They were in play for real for Shohei Ohtani, and again, I know it's a very different player in terms of the business component. But do they think Juan Soto could take over the country? That's a great business out there. The Blue Jays, when they're doing well, you have the whole country.
The one major obstacle I see, though, is they have Bichette and Vlad that are both coming up as free agents. Will they use the money, or will – because if the thing is, if they're not going to sign those guys, then the Soto signing doesn't make sense. You got to sign also those guys to go with them.
I would
At
say
least one of them, which would be Vlad, I think. They'll
Bo's
sign
gone.
Vlad over Bichette.
Yeah, Bo's gone. Soto signing actually helps them recruit Vlad and say, hey, let's get serious right now and talk about this. You're going to be our 2. Instead of Judge and Soto, it's going to be Vladdy and Soto.
Makes sense to me.
Okay. Kratz, are you into it?
I'm totally into it. I think the Blue Jays have needed to – they make different kind of money up there, and people gloss over that fact. And
It's
they don't have to
Canadian money,
recruit. Every other free agent is going to look at it and be like, well, what's the future of this organization with, because their future is looking bleak. A lot of these pitchers are going to be off. Bo's going to be gone. All that stuff. Juan's just looking for the cash. And Toronto prints cash.
All right, last one for me. It'll tie into what AJ said about the Tigers because we don't fake it. We don't share what we're doing. We just kind of lay it all out. I've got the Tigers acquiring one of AJ Hinch's former leaders, either Alex Bregman, which is not as bold of a prediction, but Carlos Correa is, in my mind. I don't think a lot of people are talking about the fact that he could get traded. The Minnesota Twins are in a desperate financial situation right now. And I don't know why that is, but they are. And they are operating and trying to operate at a profit. And that is for multiple reasons. One, that's how this next generation of owner and Pohlad family likes to operate. Two, he's trying to sell the team. So he's trying to be like, look what we can do. And I think he's going to try and trade away an asset like that, who's actually coming off a really good game-for-game season. The injury concerns are there, but I think there's a level, even if you have to buy down a little bit of the contract, where that is definitely a tradable player in my mind. It is not years and years left for Carlos Correa, and I still think he can be a winning player, especially on a contending team that can take care of him and say, hey, we want to make sure he's thriving for the playoffs. He's been clutch. I think he really helps with young players. So I think he could be a really big boost to the Tigers if they lose out on the Alex Bregman sweepstakes. Do you guys like that one at all? I mean, he was almost a 4-win player this year. I know he was definitely hurt. He played, a little over half a season, but he was really good when he was on the field. And he definitely has an injury history to him, but he's also played a lot.
They're not trading Carlos Correa in the division.
No matter what?
Nope.
So it's too bold?
They're taking Jerry Reinsdorf model
What if that's
I'm not
the only
trading
option?
in the division.
What if that's the only option? I actually think that Derek Falvey doesn't care about that.
It's not Derek Falvey's choice, though.
It's ownership. Ownership's selling. What do they care?
They care. Because
You
they want
think
the
they
highest
care?
value they can get for the franchise.
Right,
They still
but if
think they
they
can
trade
win,
him
too.
away, they're
They
going to
still think they
take.
can win without Carlos Correa?
He's $33 million a year on the books.
Okay.
$33 million.
Are they trying to win or are they trying to cut money?
trying to cut money?
Okay, well, then that makes sense, but they're not going to trade him in the division.
Because initially they signed him thinking that payroll was going to continue to tick up. He has 4 years, $128 million left. There are 3 players, and now
What
I'm
do you do
taking
with Javi Baez?
Joel
Do you
Sherman
trade
wrote
Javi
an
Baez
article
for
and-
Carlos Correa?
maybe to offset a little bit of money, maybe. Yeah, change of scenery and all of that. But Correa, Buxton, Pablo Lopez are taking up more than half of the payroll for this coming season because they thought they were going to keep ticking up, which is what they promised the city and the winning and the whole thing, but they ended up not doing that and going down. So now I think there was a disconnect even with someone like Falvey and former GM Thad Levine as well, where they thought that he was going to take up X amount of the payroll, but it ends up being a much smaller amount. That's why I put this together. So it's Bregman or Correa. And okay, lastly, do you think Correa will be traded or not? Because that even in itself is a bold prediction. You don't think he's getting traded? You think he's going to be taking up a third of the payroll?
I think Twins are 1 year removed from having a really good year and pretty much a week of brutal play, making another playoff run. And to me, that bullpen is still intact. Their starting pitching is enough. I don't know if it's elite, but their starting pitching is enough. I think they feel like they can get back to the playoffs again.
Well, I think they're mistaken because the division's getting better. So it's time.
It is.
They had a nice run of making it to the ALDS for 1 year to give their fans just a little peek. Yeah, but it's okay. Somebody cool and successful is going to take this team over and have it as their toy. Anyway, let us know what you think about the bold predictions in the comments and give us some of your own. I'll check some of them out and maybe we can do a future episode on fan bold predictions on FT. All right, we'll be right back. Awards are going out soon for Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, MVP, etc. We know who the finalists are. We'll talk about them. I'm going to do another fan comment read. I'll try and dumb this one down a little bit. This is from Ryan. He's like, I love how some fake fans bash on Muncy for having a cold World Series, but if you look at the full postseason, he had the highest on base of anyone on the Dodgers, and he drew 15 walks. He had 3 home runs, as many as Shohei and Teoscar did, And then he said, oh, fans that were worried about his glove, he brought his glove, solid glove at third, blah, blah, blah. And there was a ton more that he wrote about with specifics. But great call. I agree. I mean,
Muncy don't care what y'all think. He got a World Series ring. He doesn't give a damn what y'all think. So
Yeah.
stop. That's why we asked him when he said, he goes, I'll go hitless every time we win a World Series. Doesn't matter. Because you know what? Nobody remembers.
No.
Nobody remembers. All they remember is them jumping up and down the trophy. You could go for the whole damn postseason. If you get the trophy at the end of the day, nobody remembers nothing.
And you don't want to change a thing.
No,
you don't want to change history at all because who knows how it would look. Also,
I mean, it would help my BetMGM locks, but
True.
other than that, it wouldn't have changed anything.
Cold World
but
Series,
I did win that anyway. So
right, Cold World Series.
Yeah,
in terms of hits, but
Thank you,
also,
Max.
Easy money.
Do the Dodgers do what they do? Do they get where they get without Muncy in prior rounds? No. So that's an
I mean,
easy
he did
one.
reach base like 13 straight times. Was it 13 straight times? 12 or 13?
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
There's where the value too in a player like him. People are always like, oh, his batting average is whatever. He puts together great at-bats. And this team was not winning when he was not in the lineup. They were not hitting very well. He extends this lineup. I get it. Anybody that hits 35 pumps a year is going to extend the lineup. But it's more than just his average. So anybody who doesn't think he should be back on the Dodgers, I promise there's 29 other teams that would be like, we'll take him. We'll take him. Because he is he's an all-star player.
Yeah, he is. And I think this fan was responding to some people that say Muncy do an interview with us, and they're like, oh, hit better in the World Series. And it's like, really?
It's like my argument with the whole Judge doesn't hit in the playoffs kind of thing. It's like, if you have more hits than Judge in the playoffs, then you can say he doesn't hit in the playoffs. The dude's got like 15 career homers in the playoffs. He didn't do well this year. I get it. He's a game changer in the lineup.
Top heavy team too. Give him some damn help. We'll see if that happens. Top heavy team. There were a lot of auto outs for a good amount of time until a portion of that lineup got hot late.
There was the Dodgers too until the end of the season.
Yes, it was. It was. You're right. And they made some moves to fix that. Let's hit the awards people care about. And we do have the finalists for MVP, Cy Young, Rookie, Manager. Anything stand out to you guys? I mean, this year's a little bit easier than most. I think Rookie's kind of fun. But anything stand out? I mean, we know who the MVPs are going to be, right? That's already done.
Yeah.
It's Ohtani and Judge.
Cy Youngs are done. Although people are saying Class A, no to me.
No, that's a small group of people.
Scooble's going to win it because of the bulk. It's the bulk, right? It's the bulk of what he did. Huh?
Dude, he's going to win unanimous. If somebody doesn't vote for Scooble this year for Cy Young, you need to come on the show and explain yourself.
There's 3 on here. Actually, there's 4 on here that are interesting to me. Both Rookie of the Year, both managers. Rookie of the Year, Jackson Merrill and Paul Skeens. It's going to probably go to Skeens. But also Jackson Chourio, his numbers are unbelievable if you look at him from like June on. And people don't do that. But Skeens is going to win. The AL Rookie of the Year to me, I mean, I guess it's going to be Cowser. But Austin Wells, we talked about this, and we love Austin Wells, great guy. But his numbers don't merit Rookie of the Year for me. To what Luis Hill had a great first month and a kind of a great end, but in the middle he was kind of a mess a little bit. So, I mean, I guess it's going to be Cowser. The managers of the year, to me, it should be Murphy, I think, and it should be Steven Vogt. Although if you look at the names on here, Mendoza definitely deserves it because nobody really thought Mendoza's team was going to be any good.
But over Murph?
That's what I'm saying. And then Schilt also, the Padres were supposed to be giving up all this money. They were with the Dodgers till the end, right? Then you go to the American League, Steven Vogt with the Guardians. But again, Hinch's Tigers, they weren't favored to win the division, and neither were Quintaro. So, I mean, it's basically an AL Central award. Who was the best manager in the AL Central? It's going to be probably Vogt and Murphy, well-deserving. But these are the only interesting ones. MVP, Cy Young's wrapped up.
Okay, so let me ask Kratz. I'm going to narrow down what you said to 2. Kratz, let me get your take on AL Rookie of the Year, because I think that one's tough. And also, AL Manager of the Year, I felt like was Quintaro for a long time. Or, well, maybe some other people, and you might be more Vogt biased. because you know what he's been doing in Cleveland and they win the division there. But then also AJ Hinch. So the Tigers, it's not just the team they had, it's the run they put together down the stretch. That's what's crazy. So how do you size up those two?
I'm going to go to the manager of the year first, AL manager of the year. I don't think Hinch wins it because I think these votes had to be in before the end of the season. If you waited till the very last day of the season,
I'm going to stop you. It's end of the season. That's when they come in.
That's what I'm saying. But people aren't doing it on the last day. They're not filling it out on the last day.
Yes, they do.
So that's different than the MVP and Rookie of the Year because all that is before the end of the season.
No, I think you're thinking about like the Player's Choice or some of the other awards. No. These writer awards they wait until the very end of the year and then they submit. It's like a very strict process.
That was the whole argument why Verlander didn't win the Cy Young that one year.
No, that's conspiracy theory. No, that's not true.
Okay, well if the votes go in on October 1st, AJ Hinch wins it. No way anybody can say, as much as I'm a Q fan, as much as I'm a voter fan, AJ Hinch took a team that got rid of their second best pitcher to the playoffs. Not even talk about what they did in the playoffs. It's AJ Hinch without a doubt. If it went in where I think it goes in, where they do it the last 2 weeks of the season, and the Tigers were still 3-4 games out, Voter gets it, I think. Because of what Voter did, the Royals, while they went from 106 losses or whatever, 100 losses to making the playoffs, they also paid for some of those players. The Guardians didn't pay for anybody. The Guardians said, we're running it back with the same team. We're just bringing a new manager in. And the Rookie of the Year, I think National League is Jackson Merrill. I think Jackson Merrill was out there more times to be able to see it. I get Skeens is a top 3 finalist for the Cy Young. I just think the longevity of him doing what he did in center field for a playoff team, I think it's huge. All those walk-off homers, go-ahead RBIs, he was clutch, and he was there from day one to game 162. American League, I think it's Colton Cowser.
Not happening for Merrill. He had a great year, but Skeens is going to win. Too much hype, too much everything, too much wins, too much historic year. He had a historic rookie year.
Yeah, he did.
Look at his numbers. That's the bottom line. Jackson Merrill had a great year.
He played the whole season. He's a position player. That's what people are going to go against.
But Skeens made over 20 something starts, and it had like a sub-2 ERA. Had an unbelievable strikeout to walk, to hits, to whip, and all that stuff. I mean, Skeens had a historic year. He's going to win. Right? Plus, you know what? No offense to Jackson Merrill and the San Diego Padres. MLB wants Paul Skeens to win.
They don't get to decide. MLB wishes
they don't, but trust me, they want Paul Skeens to win this award.
Yeah. He had a 196 in 23 starts.
That's what I'm saying. 23 starts.
Which, if you think about it,
what was this? Like a million strikeouts, too.
Yeah, 133 innings, 170 strikeouts. Yeah. I mean, he had a dumb year. His ERA plus 100 league average, he basically gave you 2 pitchers worth, average pitchers worth of performance in one. 214.
Yeah, he's winning. He's winning. I'm sorry. He had a historic year.
I agree.
The American League one to me is a little bit tougher because, it's really between Cowser and Heel, but I think Cowser will win it.
Okay. Yeah. And any of the NL would have dominated. They would have won unanimously.
Yes. If Merrill or Churio was in the NL, they would have won this probably unanimously.
Yes. It's just the way that it lays out. It's just that kind of year. So, anyway, thoughts from everyone else? I'll check out a few of these in the YouTube chat while we hit a break. For the TV crowd, we'll be right back. We'll get ready to talk to Robert Murray on what happened at the GM meetings and what's next.
As far as Jorge Soler, looking at the market and seeing what's available from a bat standpoint, we really struggled with power last year. We were 29th in slug, and it was an area where we felt like we needed to improve. Looking at the market and what was available, we thought Jorge really fit. It's 2 years. He's 32 years old. It's an outstanding at bat. There's presence in the box. He can go to the outfield here and there and play some outfield if you want him to. And again, from a clubhouse standpoint, he's A++. So we feel like that was a great fit for us, and just definitely enhance our lineup. And, we'll continue to try and lengthen our lineup the rest of the offseason.
Hey, Perry, follow-up question. So Ken Rosenthal is part of this group as well, put out a report about a week ago in The Athletic saying that there could be concern if Trout was DHing all the time, that he's such a freaking gamer, that he's going to be taking swings left and right. How much of a factor, if anything, is that? And even still, like, let's say Trout plays X amount of games at DH, will that have to be a conversation? Like, hey, dude, we got to figure out how to keep you on the field.
Yeah.
So DH, but careful.
He's an animal, right? And he'll do anything he can to be as good as he can. And I know he's talented. I know there's a certain talent level there, but I think we've all seen talented players, right? What separates him from everybody else is the work. And when it comes to work and when it comes to getting the things he needs to do to feel ready to go for that particular day, it involves swings and a lot of swings. And yes, talking about the DH spot. We've done a lot of homework on that. I've called a lot of players that have DH'd over the years that I've known. And, do you take, how many extra swings over the course of a game do you take DHing relative to playing in the field? And, some would say it's 50 to 100 per at bat, so obviously that adds up over the course of the season. So, for us, he's still talented in the outfield. He can still run. He can still throw. He'll definitely play some outfield. And again, we'll form a plan as we go forward.
I'm going to answer fan questions in the chat. We'll try and get through a few, and then Robert Murray's going to join us for a little insider segment coming up in the next segment. So let us start with a question on our Soto segment from earlier. Swamp says, do you think Soto will take low years at a record-breaking high average annual value? Let's say the Dodgers make this offer. Thoughts? I actually think the Dodgers get made fun of this because I think they did this to Bryce Harper. Most players are not interested in that. Especially someone like him, he's going to the market at a young age. And sure, you might think, oh, he can hit the market twice. Nah, he's going to the market to just make as much money as he can one time. So people that sometimes say, oh, well, maybe the Dodgers can be in play and offer him 3 years, $55 million. It would have to
be something so ridiculous.
But think about that. Let's say it's 3 years, 60, which would be it would beat the highest average annual value by about $15 million. 3 years, 60 is how much money? Anyone?
180.
180. Okay. 180. He's going to get at least $500 million. Why would he take that?
I don't know.
That's so stupid. I'm not saying it's a stupid question. I'm just saying there's no chance that he's going to do that.
Watch the beginning of the show. He's going where they get the most money.
But I'm saying they're saying, what do you mean by most money? Not highest average annual value. Maybe that. But the bigger concern is how much money in the totality of the contract. That is the big number that most players care about, especially when they're in this point in their career. Now, when you're Verlander or Scherzer or somebody like that, you might care more about your average annual value because you're going more on a year-to-year or shorter term deal, right? And you've made a ton of money. But in Soto's case, who's got the biggest present day offer on the table? That's it. Mm-hmm. It's that simple. So no, the Dodgers with a creative short-term offer have no chance in this case, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next up, let's do a question from Schumann, who won our little surprise contest yesterday. So what does Dave Roberts need to do to be considered for Manager of the Year again, or is he forever disqualified? I think he'll happily take the disqualification.
He'll take the World Series over the Manager of the Year. Because the Manager of the Year doesn't get you anything except for a little trophy. I don't even think they give him a trophy. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, someone's calling. Who's here? We don't want anybody.
No, we want Robert Murray. Fansided insider Robert Murray joining us right now. Robert, great to see you, man. How's everything?
Everything is good, man. It's good to be back. It's been a long time. I appreciate you boys having me again on the show.
Of course. All right, let's get right into it. I want to start with Roki Sasaki. Your thoughts? We've covered him quite a bit, even last week, talking about him as a pitcher. Then the news comes out over the weekend. What do you think as far as how the pitches are going to go and how you weigh the chance that he doesn't end up with the Dodgers or even maybe a Padres play here?
Yeah, I think there's been a ton of Dodgers talk among everyone in the media. I've heard the exact same thing on my end. I expect them to be a firm player in this sweepstakes. I mean, you can say that about any big free agent when it comes to the Dodgers, but I think this is a really unique situation for them where they wouldn't have to break the bank in order to sign him, at least as of this point right now. They can get him like pretty affordable, and I think that plays for them, but it also plays for almost any team in baseball. And if you're looking for pitching, which, I mean, every team in baseball is doing that, obviously, you have to pursue a guy like this because it's a really unique opportunity to sign a guy for potentially like pretty cheap. And he can end up being a frontline starting pitcher for you now going forward. And I think it's going to be the Dodgers that get the most talk, the Padres. I think the Rangers make a lot of sense. I think the Cubs make a lot of sense. I think almost any big market team makes a lot of sense. I could even see a team like the Milwaukee Brewers making some sense because there's been reports about him really valuing pitching development and player development and being in a really good situation. And the Brewers have been one of the best teams in terms of developing pitchers. I'm not saying I've heard the Brewers connected to him, but I think that's a team that could make some sense.
I think every team should be involved in Sasaki, especially. I mean, the Brewers. Yeah, why not? I mean, it'd be amazing. The Brewers fans would love him, but I mean, we'll see. We'll
He's
see.
not going there.
But every team can afford him because he's not unaffordable. That's the key to Sasaki. He's not unaffordable. But my real question though is, we've been talking about Juan Soto already for feels like months. It's only been a few days, but it feels like months. And then Sasaki hits the market. Are either of these teams going to hold up the winner like last year was Shohei and some other guys, right? Because I just had a report where I read where it's going to be quick moving, but then you wrote a report that says it's going to be a slow moving winner. So is it because of Soto and Sasaki, or can we get a move on this year and let's try to figure this out so we don't have to wait till January or February to figure out where guys are going?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a winter, and I know I'm going up against Jeff Passan on this one, but I'm thinking this could be a pretty slow start to the offseason here. And I think Soto is going to hold things up. I think there could be a multitude of different factors. I've had numerous team, like high-ranking executives, tell me that they're bracing for a pretty slow winter for just exactly how this offseason is going to end up playing out. So maybe things change. I mean, I would firmly expect there's going to be players who sign before Juan Soto, but I don't expect Soto to sign before the winter meetings. I could see Boris wanting to have him sign during the winter meetings so he can end up having as much spotlight on that signing as possible, because we're talking about a historic contract when it comes to him. And when you have Soto and he expecting to get between like probably $500 to $600 million, that's going to be ownership level where they're involved. And that always slows up the process as well. So I'm thinking it could be kind of a similar situation, kind of like last year where teams were waiting for Ohtani to sign. And then there was kind of the floodgates that opened up afterwards. Maybe that ends up happening again. I kind of anticipate that being the case, but you can never say never because the offseason is always kind of unpredictable.
Who's most affected by Juan Soto not signing or signing? What player? Because there's no comp for Juan Soto. There's no like, ooh, well, if they don't get Juan Soto, like this is a good second. Like it's Juan and it's everybody else. But who is most affected by Juan not signing?
I think it's all like the upper level players, because Soto's going to end up being like the number one player on the market for a lot of these different teams. We've heard about it with the Yankees, with the Mets, with the Red Sox, with the Giants, with the Blue Jays, all of these other teams. And you have to admit, or you have to think that all of these teams that are in that sweepstakes are going to wait for Soto to sign until they're able to act on a guy like a Corbin Burns or an Alex Bregman or a Blake Snell or a Max Fried or players of that caliber. So I'm thinking it's just going to it's going to impact the upper level guys, like basically across the board. Maybe one ends up slipping through the cracks and ends up getting a deal done before Soto. But I would think we're looking at some of these mid-tier guys like a Nathan Eovaldi or just some of these other like mid-tier guys could end up signing before then. But I'm just expecting the upper level guys to take a little bit of time here.
Robert, have you heard anything about budget plans for teams that have been question marks? And I'm talking about mostly big market teams that haven't always acted like that recently. So I'll throw a bunch of teams out there and just let me know if there's any that stand out to you. Boston, Chicago, San Francisco. I'll throw Seattle in there because just like last year, there are still some people who think they're going to suddenly make a big splash. And I'm like, hell no. But yeah, help me out here.
Yeah, I think some of those teams that you listed make a whole lot of sense. And I'll start with Boston. I left the GM meetings. That was one of my number one takeaways, is that I think the Red Sox are going to be really in a position to spend here. And that's not coming from people like inside the organization, but that's people who have interacted with people inside the Red Sox. And I have been very skeptical, both on this show and on my podcast, The Baseball Insiders, that I've just been really skeptical and critical of them not spending in previous years. And I've said that's a direct reflection on ownership. But I've left the GM meetings way more optimistic about their chances of spending potentially significant dollars this offseason than I have in previous offseasons. So we'll see if that's all talk or if they're actually going to match those words up with some action. And I think you look at a Juan Soto type who could transform their lineup. You can look at like a Corbin Burns or a Max Fried or a Blake Snell who would really add to that upper level pitching staff for them, because that last year they really needed some pitchers and they did not go out and get them. And I think that was a mistake, especially after losing Lucas Giolito. I mean, it's harder to make a move early in the season than it is at mid-season, but they really didn't end up getting some solid reinforcements at the deadline. I think it kind of cost them, but I think they have a chance to right that wrong. And I left the GM meetings really expecting them to do so.
Can you give us more info on that without obviously, your sources or who you talk to? Because Red Sox fans are sick and tired of hearing it. They're sick and tired of hearing that. And they're tired of going through GMs. They're tired of seeing ownerships buying other sports franchises and other sports in general. So what is going to make a Red Sox, if you have to, because we have one of our producers one of our directors is a Red Sox fan, you have to convince him.
Oh, I'll try my best to convince him. And he's got every right to be skeptical. Their actions or lack thereof in previous years have kind of given him every reason to be skeptical. But I think they have a real strong leadership group in Craig Breslow. And you also look at Alex Cora. I'm not saying Chaim Bloom wasn't a really good executive there. I think he's a really talented guy who'll do well in St. Louis. But they have a really strong leadership group, and they have a team last year that really outperformed expectations. And they showed flashes. They showed glimpses of being a really strong playoff caliber team. And I think if you look at it, you can end up adding a upper level starting pitcher, and you continue to upgrade the lineup. It's going to be tough to add a guy like Corbin Burns and Juan Soto. My guess, and that's just purely what this is you got to get one or the other. And to me, with the way I've got to be really careful with how I exactly go about this, because I don't want to burn anyone, but I left there pretty optimistic that they're just going to spend. You're going to have to take my word for it. If they don't end up spending, you can have me on the show again. You can play this clip and you can play the clown music. You can absolutely do that. But I left there pretty optimistic.
Okay, before I ask the question I really wanted to ask, which is about the Marlins, which we'll get to next, another big spender in the market. What does spending look like? Because you could do a mid-level spending where you sign 4 or 5 guys and it adds up to like 50, 60 million. Or are we talking, as they said last year, full throttle, where they go back to the 2000 to 2007 Red Sox, and they're actually really trying?
Yeah, and those full throttle comments, I remember when they said those, and I was just like, oh boy, here we go. And then they ended up rescinding those comments. I would say, obviously there's been reports today about Juan Soto being atop their wish list, and they're going to meet with him in California along with Soto's agent, Scott Boras. So I think you look at that as at least one possibility, or you can end up going out and spending significant dollars on like a Fried or a Burns or a Snell. I honestly think a Max Fried type in Boston would be an incredible fit. And I could see that being a potential match there for sure. I think I'm not optimistic about their chances with Soto. I think the Yankees, the Mets, and maybe even the Blue Jays could end up being way more motivated suitors there. But I think there's a fair chance that they could end up leaving the offseason with one of those upper-level starting pitchers. That's at least my feel as of right now.
Got it. By the way, they checked in on like Yamamoto and Shohei, and they didn't sign them either. They weren't even close. So I mean, anyone could. I'm going to check in with Soto too. Maybe he'll play for play for the local team down the street. I don't know, the town team here in Orlando. I don't know, but I mean, it's not.
Wait, can I report that? Sources say. Can I report that you checked in? Yeah.
I checked in. Yeah, I called Boris yesterday and said, "Hey, I'll make an offer to."
We could do it. Like you could definitely call and do it. Or text.
I checked in. I just hey Scott, I'm checking in to see how Soto's doing. Thanks.
We have his number.
If he wants to sign here, yeah, we'd love to have him. Thank you. Okay, yeah, not
right.
happening. I mean, that's I hate that. I hate that we're having meetings. We're checking in. Anyways, let's get to this. The Marlins. Okay, another big spender. They're going all in. They're going full throttle. They hired a new manager. Why did it take so long? Clayton McCullough, he's been out there for a while. The World Series ended a while ago. Why did it take so long for the Marlins then to finally figure this out? Was it just an organizational thing? Was it McCullough the guy they wanted the whole time?
I don't think McCullough was a guy that they wanted the whole time. To me, they ended up identifying Will Venable and Albernaz in Cleveland as two of their top guys, and they ended up swinging and missing on both guys. Albernaz decided to stay in Cleveland, while Will Venable ended up going to the Chicago White Sox. And after that, they kind of had to regroup and figure out exactly where they were going to go. And at the GM meetings, they were telling people that they were getting close to hiring a manager. They were down to a couple different options there. And McCullough ended up being their guy. And as I said, I don't believe he was their top guy. I had heard different things throughout the interview process that, I don't know, that he wasn't like the top option for some of these teams that he had talked to. And I think he's going to end up having to really surround himself with some veteran coaches in Miami to really be in a position to succeed, because he's obviously was a base coach. He's really highly respected within the Dodgers organization, but he's a first-time manager. He's stepping into a place that is pretty far away from contending, and it's going to be all about player development. And if you can add some guys who can end up being real strong player development guys on that coaching staff, I think they're going to end up being in a good spot. But he's raw. I know there's some people who had some questions after the interview process that maybe he didn't interview the best. So we'll see exactly how he does in Miami. But he was their guy. They ended up just agreeing to a deal with him a couple days ago, and now he's the lead man there in Miami.
Let's get to a team in a somewhat similar spot right now, the Chicago White Sox, coming off a ridiculously bad season. So the question I have for you is a timing question. When do you think Garrett Crochet trade talks really heat up? Do you think this will be a situation where we see where everyone sits in terms of the pitchers on the market, and then it's like Dylan Cease heading into the season and the Padres finally make the offer that the White Sox like? Do you think it's going to be that kind of timing, end of offseason, because you kind of clear the board first?
Yeah, I think Crochet's got a shot to be traded around the winter meetings time. I really do. And they considered a multitude of different things at the deadline, and they had some late offers at the deadline that they really considered, but ultimately it was not enough for them to do it. And we were talking to Chris Getz at the GM meetings, and he made it clear that they already have more teams interested now than they did at the deadline. And whether or not that's posturing, I don't know, but I'm not surprised in the slightest that he's getting this kind of interest, because he's signed cheap. He was one of the best pitchers in baseball last year, and he really just exceeded expectations there. And you can look at so many different. I think Boston makes a lot of sense for them too, or for Crochet. I think you look at even the Padres, they can make some sense. I wonder if a team like the Angels could be in. I mean, it just, again, that's speculation on my part. But Perry, I think he even said on your show yesterday, I could be wrong there, that they have the prospects where they can basically get any player that they want. And they need starting pitching in the worst way. Kyle Hendricks is not going to be their only rotation move. They're going to make another rotation addition this year, or this offseason, I should say. But I expect Crochet to get traded this offseason. I think he's going to have an extensive market. It's going to have further rebuilding that farm system in Chicago. And I think Chris Getz made the right call, holding off and not moving him at the deadline and saving it for now, because it's going to allow them to get, I think, a bigger package, while some team could end up having a chance to try to extend him, which is something that he's open to.
Robert, who makes the playoff first? The Bears or the White Sox? That's all I want to know. That's my question.
Who makes the playoffs first?
Yeah, the Bears or the White Sox, because the Bears are in free fall. The White Sox were in free fall. I mean, that
That's
makes
easy.
sense. The playoffs first. Bears.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Bears. Yeah, and I think they need new coaches though. I'm a believer in Caleb Williams. I think Caleb Williams is really good. But they obviously made the change at offensive coordinator today. But man, do they need a better scheme because they got the talent. They just don't.
Ugh.
Oh man,
It's like poking my eyes with needles every time. The last couple of weeks, I'm watching their offense. Man, it's like sitting next to Scott for 3 hours.
If you want to boost, watch the Jets this past Sunday.
The Giants?
Jets.
Oh, the Jets are the Jets.
They're the least likable team I've ever seen. But anyway, Kratz, get us back on track.
I said that about the Eagles at the start of the year. Now they're 7-2. So maybe there's hope for you yet, Scott. Who knows?
No way. This team is a disaster. But thank you. I appreciate the uplifting words. Kratz, you're up.
Well, that was my last comment. So I'll go since we're talking football now. Last time you were on here, the Eagles, not last time, one of the first times you were on here, the Eagles were 10-1. And then you absolutely put the Eagles in a free fall. Now the Eagles are 7-2, and you're back on the show again. Like, let's keep that mojo away, okay?
Yeah, I swear if they lose on Thursday, I will never mention the Eagles on this show again. That would be the ultimate curse.
Scott would appreciate that. So I'm gonna get to my actual question. Alex Bregman, what does this market look like? And are we making much to do about nothing? And he's just gonna sign back with the Astros.
I think there's a real possibility of that. And even Dana Brown, their GM, said the exact same thing when I was talking to him at the GM meetings. Is he said that he is their top priority, that they think that, or that he believes that there's a good chance he returns, and that they've already had productive conversations with Bregman's agent, Scott Boras. And it's not going to just be the Astros who are involved here. There's going to be numerous different teams. I could see a team like the Seattle Mariners being involved. I know Scott will be skeptical about that because they've been kind of hesitant to spend in years past. But they need to do something to upgrade that lineup because you have a really, really good rotation there in Seattle. And if you don't supplement it with strong offense, I think that would be one of the biggest mistakes of the offseason because they have the pieces there. They just need more offense. That's why I'm connecting him to Seattle. I also see a team like the Toronto Blue Jays making a lot of sense here as well. Obviously, they've already been connected to Juan Soto. They were in last year on Shohei Ohtani and some of these other stars. They obviously swung and missed on Ohtani, but the fact that they're in on Soto here and they want to compete in 2025 with Vlad Jr. and Bo Bichette on the roster and their future is uncertain in Toronto, I think making a play for a star like that, like a Soto or an Alex Bregman, makes a lot of sense. In the end, I think Bregman makes the most sense for the Astros. As of last check, nothing was close, but I think they're really motivated to get a deal done. And obviously Bregman values and likes his time in Houston. And I think that could also be a factor in this as well.
I got a couple follow-ups here. I'll start with this. I mean, what about Detroit and AJ Hinch as a play? I know they have Jace Young, but I don't think they're sold on him necessarily, especially over a Bregman. I just feel like Hinch says, hey, I gained a lot of good faith here with what I just was able to do with a super, super cheap team. Now let's add pieces to do some damage here. So what do you think about that? And the fact that I love Dana Brown and he's very candid, but he also said last year that Kyle Tucker is going to be an Astro for his career. And now he's a season away from free agency. And I'm just like, I can't see a scenario where Bregman and Tucker are Astros. I would say there's almost no chance that both of them are signed up long-term based on how the Astros operate and how much they're going to cost. We always see the Springers, the Correas, guys like that leave. They do keep some guys, but both, when they're this close, one is a free agent, the other's almost there.
Yeah, I think that's a great call by you, Scott. And you look at Tucker as well. And Dana Brown, we asked him about this too. He said that they did not have any plans to have extension talks with him this offseason, that they were putting Bregman as their number one priority, and that it could end up being something that they evaluate in spring training or even like during the regular season. And it's not usual to have negotiations like that in season. Typically teams keep that like during the offseason to kind of just avoid a distraction. So I think you're spot on for pointing that out. To me, it would probably be one or the other. I'm really curious to see exactly what direction they would go in. Obviously, the injury to Tucker last year really impacted him, and that probably could have ended up tabling some discussions there as well. But But as far as the fit for Detroit and Bregman, I do think it makes sense, especially with the fact that he's willing to play some different positions in the infield, like second base and third base, is what Boris ended up telling us in San Antonio. I wonder if the Javi Baez contract could give them some hesitancy, or could make them a little bit hesitant. I would doubt it, but Bregman is obviously a player that they're really familiar with, especially Hinch from their time in Houston. A lot of familiarity there. I can't imagine he's going to end up breaking. Like, I wouldn't imagine he's going to make in $200 million. It's going to be lower than that, I would imagine. And to me, I think if you're the Tigers, you have a really strong young core. You're ascending. I think Detroit's going to end up being a place where players want to go. We've already seen Michael Lorenzen thrive there when he ended up going, trying to make his move to the rotation. We saw Jack Flaherty really enjoy his time in Detroit. And I've heard since then that he absolutely loved it there. And I got to imagine there's going to be other players who see just the kind of impact that they're having in Detroit, and they're going to want to flock there, because I truly am like, it's very rare you can say that you're high on what the Tigers are building, but Scott Harris and AJ Hinch have a really good thing going there, and it wouldn't be surprising at all to see some of these players really want to kind of go into Detroit now.
Yeah, and you're in the AL Central. You can do damage pretty quickly. Yeah, that's a big edge.
Quickly.
So my one other follow-up, of course, is going to be on the Mariners. It's the team that I probably watch the most late nights, and I get frustrated even though the pitching is sick. There's no way they're signing Alex Bregman. No way. I mean, Ken Rosenthal came out the other day and said he essentially said there's no way they're signing a player for $100 million. He said he thinks their payroll is going to go up a little bit, but that's because they have so much talent, and many of them are hitting arbitration now, so they're going to cost them. Some of our fans in the chat actually brought a good idea, because we were talking about Alec Bohm potentially on the block. That might be a good fit. The Mariners definitely need a third baseman, and a third baseman who can hit. Bohm's got the hit tool. I think it would play well in Seattle. That is much more of a play for them in my mind than bringing in someone like Bregman. This ownership group has been very, very firm that they are not going to operate like that.
No, I totally agree. And I knew as soon as I ended up saying that, because I had it in my brain, I'm thinking, oh, Scott's going to rip this one. And lo and behold, you did not disappoint. So I appreciate you keeping me honest on that one. I'm not saying it was the most likely option by any means. I do think Bohm makes a lot of sense for Seattle. It wouldn't break the bank at all. I mean, it'll take a little bit to get him, because he's a really good young player. But the Phillies really want to kind of shake things up a little bit. And because I think after last year and exactly what ended up playing, or how it played out where they got eliminated early, they're going to keep that core, like that really strong high-end core. But I think after that, almost anyone is going to end up being available, and Bohm is going to end up fitting that category. And I can't imagine he's going to end up being – the Mariners would be alone in that race at all for Bohm. There's going to be plenty of different teams that are going to be involved in that. But to me, that makes a lot of sense. If you can end up adding – one thing I learned at the GM meetings, and I think everyone kind of knows this, is they're really happy with where their outfield is, but they really want to improve the infield. And if you can get a Bohm type, if you can end up getting another player as well that can really elevate the offense, then I think the Mariners could be cooking with gas. When you have the good upgrade in the infield and upgrade the offense and pair that with that pitching staff, there could be a really good thing going there. I expect them to do it, but as I said, I think Bregman could be pretty unlikely, but they will upgrade the offense. I feel pretty confident in that.
Anything at this point is an upgrade to the offense.
True.
All right, so you recently got a new family member. Did we get a new family member there?
That is true.
Cooper.
Nice.
Come on,
Cooper's coming in.
Do you mind if I stand up and get him?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Of course
I love
not.
dogs. Kratz hates dogs. I love dogs.
Oh, stop it. Bella is a gem. The only reason I go to Studio Kratz is to hang out with Bella. Sorry,
All right, everybody, meet Cooper.
Oh.
Hey.
Lab or golden?
This is a little golden retriever. His name's Cooper. He's about 8 weeks old, and he is already the absolute love of my life. He's gotten so much love. And, yeah, say hi, everybody.
Hey, what's up, Cooper? Wait, can I see, give us a side angle of the size here of the pup?
Oh, he's tiny. He's little
golden
baby
retrievers get pretty big.
Yeah, he's a little guy. By the way, you're going to be tired because he's going to wear you out. So you better just get ready for walk after walk after walk.
Dude, I'm not even kidding you. I've run with, I am not a runner. Like I am many things. A runner is not one of them, but I have run more in the last 4 days than I have in probably the last 10 years combined. He's keeping me honest, but he is a very good boy. He's very loved. And he's now, he's my best friend. So welcome to the show, Coop.
There you go. Welcome to the show. And he's making his TV debut. It's good for you though, because Robert, obviously you're an insider. You're on the phone. You're inside a lot. All of that. He'll get you outside. He'll keep you in shape. He'll keep you young. So Cooper, make sure you do your thing and be as annoying as possible, and make sure Daddy-O goes outside. So Robert, congrats.
He's already got more sources than I do, so he's already a good insider. Good job, Coop.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say he's cute. He's got the edge. So congrats on the addition, and thanks for joining us. Good to see you. We'll chat again, of course, sometime this offseason, all right?
No, that sounds perfect to me. I appreciate you, boys. Have a good rest of your day.
You too. Appreciate you. That's Robert Murray. Check out his work in Fansided. Give him a follow. Check out his pod too. BetMGM Futures World Series division of winning team. Remember we did this and we liked the NL West quite a bit because of the Dodgers, Padres, and at the time the Diamondbacks. And we felt like there was good value there.
And the Giants at the time, because we thought the Giants were going to be better.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. We felt like there was a lot of value with how many teams were involved. So do we feel the same way again? I think the most interesting case here will be the people who are saying the Dodgers are a super team now and it's unfair, blah, blah, blah. But also we haven't seen repeat champions in a very long time. But also I think it often has to do with pitching, and we don't have most of their pitchers factoring into this World Series anyway. Most of them were hurt.
Listen, the NL West with the Dodgers obviously leads. The fact that the NL Central is behind the AL Central to me, though, is because there could be a super team in there. It's called the Cubs. They just don't spend any money.
But that's why they're plus 900.
I know, but the Reds, I think, are going to be better. The Brewers, obviously, Kratz thinks are going to win every year. The AL Central, though, the fact that they're not the last place finally shows that the AL Central getting that respect that they deserve.
Well, if they follow your narrative of the Tigers being the big players in the offseason, the Tigers could be a bit of a force, right? There's teams like that, and the path could be a little bit easier. It definitely was this year in the American League versus the National League. So
100%.
Which NL Central team is going to steamroll through the Dodgers, the Braves, the Mets, the Padres, etc.? I just think NL Central chances of winning a World Series next year are damn low. I wouldn't touch that plus 900.
Okay.
Kratz, anything we're missing quick?
No, couldn't agree more. I love that plus 310 there with the Braves and the Phillies and what the Mets are going to do. That number may change, but I don't think it's going to change significantly because the Dodgers are still in the West.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the AL East, after Soto signs with the Blue Jays, could change too.
Yeah.
They would just water it down. National League's the best.
Up to $1,500 back when you use the bonus code FOUL. Sign up for the BetMGM Sportsbook app or go to the website and place your first wager. Get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if the bet loses. If that happens, your bonus bets will be available once your initial wager is settled. Gambling problem or concern, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Be right back with a quickie segment answering your questions. Here we are. We're back and doing more fan questions. I'm trying to, what is it called? For the people. Trying to get to as many questions here to appreciate the YouTube chat and people that are watching us live here. Of course, there's plenty of you watching live on television, but you can also chat with us live during the show. So you can watch on TV and then send us notes if you subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Or if you're traveling, please don't look at your phones. Just go on Apple, Spotify, or wherever to listen to the podcast. Or hit up the app as well. You can do that. So let's get to a response from a fan, not you, I think it's called. I'd be happy with Teoscar Hernandez in Cleveland, running it back with Fry rehabbing on IL rather than taking up a roster spot as a DH only. Right, because Fry's going to have to DH for a good chunk of this coming season. I mean, and even if they platoon him, you're not going to sign a DH. There's not many DHs on the market anyway. I mean, Jock Peterson-ish. Who else? Soler was a trade, obviously. Let me see if I'm missing any other prominent DHs. I mean, JD Martinez, I don't know what's going to happen there. I don't know what's going to happen with Eloy Jimenez, probably looking at a minor league contract for someone like him. So do we like Teoscar Hernandez as a play for the Cleveland Guardians?
I like it, but I think if they're going to spend that kind of money, it needs to be somebody who has had consistent years. I'm not saying Teo's not worth it. I'm saying somebody that has had consistent track record and they know if it's a hitter, they're going to get 30-plus pumps. If it's a pitcher, they know they're going to get 32 starts. Like they are – obviously there's no sure things, but they're going to need as close to a sure thing as they get. And Teoscar's had some good years, some bad years. You know, is he going to be too much of a central focus point in that lineup where teams are going to be like, okay, well, Jose Ramirez, do they hit him? You know, is that enough to pitch around Jose to then put the pressure on Teo? You know, I think he plays a great job of being that like secondary role to a superstar.
Okay. And then one more. Army Chow Mein. If Sale goes another 3 seasons with 180-plus Ks and a sub-3.8-ish ERA, is he a Hall of Famer?
100%.
I mean, I'd have to dig in, but I would say yes. He's
would say
going to have a Cy Young after this. He's got a World Series.
3 more good seasons.
3 more good seasons, I would think yes.
Yeah.
And hopefully I get invited to his induction. Yes, so I'm going yes.
You would definitely get invited.
I know, hopefully.
You brought in that little pup into the league.
I know, little fella.
Yeah.
Little fella.
Little big
Come on,
fella,
little
actually. But skinny fella. Tall, skinny fella.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yes, I would agree with that. I think there's definitely a pathway that's pretty good for Sale to make it to the Hall of Fame based on what he just did here. He's clearly shown us that if he can stay on the field, he is still an elite top. I mean, this year
I got to look at his. I got to dig
3?
into his numbers because I got to dig in a little more.
Okay.
So
when
we had him on,
I'd love for the answer to be an easy yes.
Okay.
When we had him on, I asked him that, and he said, I don't think so.
Yeah, but you can't go off him. He's being humble. Why the difference, JJ? I'm thinking the same thing. So if I meet with Roki and I say, hey, we can't do this. We love what the Brewers did with Jackson Chourio. We're just saying that and we thought it was cool. After he does sign, can't they throw a massive extension his way?
Eventually, yes. Right away, no. The best way I can explain that is that in Jackson Chourio's case, it was clear that was not an attempt to circumvent the bonus limits. Jackson Chourio came in. He played multiple years before he, basically signed that extension. Here's the way that it is written in the CBA. Promising, representing, or committing to sign a player to another minor league contract or a major league contract in the future, or to provide additional compensation under your current contract, such as a higher salary in future years of a minor league contract, is prohibited. So if someone signed Sasaki and then in March said we've signed him to a 9-year deal, that's probably going to get basically vetoed. That's going to be – now, if you said 2 years from now, we saw this with Ohtani, you can extend him eventually. This doesn't mean you can never extend him. But anything that in any way appears to be an attempt to get around the bonus limitations is going to be looked at extremely, I would say, skeptically. You can't hire, a friend of Roki Sasaki's and funnel money that way. You can't offer, promise that you can't even promise that he's going to be on your opening day roster. As much as he will be on your opening day roster, you can't promise that. He's signing a minor league contract. And the best way I can put it is MLB lays out in fine detail all these different ways you can't offer inducements more than a signing bonus. And that's it. But then beyond that, they then say if there's anything else, by the way, it all fits under this umbrella of you can't offer anything else. So if we don't explain it here, the commissioner can still punish you if you try to go around the rules by coming up with something that we haven't come up with. And if you say, oh yeah, well, has anyone ever been punished for this? Ask the Braves, because the Braves had not just a GM who was banned from the game, suspended. They also had players who were declared free agents. They were penalized and prevented from signing players internationally for more than $10,000. They had bonus pool limitations after that. Like Ben, as Ben knows, again, better than I do, this is pretty strict. This is something that really is to make sure that a team signs Roki Sasaki for what can only be described as a truly bargain basement rate.
If you're trying to talk smack to AJ and you say, well, why don't you just go jump off a plane? He did it. We talked about it at the beginning of yesterday's show. We now have the video footage coming in. Thank you to the video crew. Let's get a little look and play-by-play from AJ as we go here.
Oh, that's me and Shep Rose, if you haven't seen Southern Charm. There we are on the plane, which, by the way, I'm squatting there, so you see how small the plane is. And this is the most nervous part, because I'm hanging out of an airplane with a guy holding on to me, and he throws you out sideways.
And you're a big dude, and that guy...
Now listen, anytime you have an ex-Navy SEAL on your back, you feel a little bit better about what you're doing. The fact that there was a lady videographer right here that was 5 feet away from us filming this whole thing is absolutely insane. But yeah, you can see, listen, it was cool because it was my hometown of Orlando, so I got to see all of Orlando from this high. I recommend doing it. I know, listen, if you're scared of heights, it's not really a heights thing. It's just more of I can't believe I'm about to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. And by the way, let me just say this. I crushed that landing.
Did you guys land on your feet?
Right. We slide right on your butt.
Wow.
Right. And then my boy Boots right there. Big hug for him. And you can see the perfect divots. And there it is. All of us lined up. All of us had jumped together. Just a great time. I can't thank Folds of Honor enough. What a great organization and what they did. And I've done a bunch of things with them. But Folds of Honor, you're the best. Boots, you're the man. And Shep Rose, we're bonded for life, baby. I don't know. We skydived together for life. We are bonded for life. So thank you.
You look before you jump into the air.
No, listen, when you're sitting up there and you start, they have altimeters on their wrist and they're like, all right, we get to 10,000, it's go time. So before that, everyone's joking and laughing until you get to about 8,000. Shut up, serious time.
Yeah, it gets real. Paul Sewald, free agent on the show tomorrow.